Hi, I am your host, Leonette Talley, and you are listening to Virago 24/7. Virago is Latin for female warrior, and 24/7 is for all day, every day. Virago 24/7 is a weekly podcast that brings diverse women together to talk about life and our experiences in this world. We share our views on self-love, mental health, marriage, children, friendships, and really anything that needs to be talked about. Here, you will find everyday growth, everyday healing with everyday warriors. Just give me my space to move. 'Cause it's my thoughts, what I want, and I want what I want. I am so excited for today. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
We did a homeschool podcast a few weeks ago with Amanda Walsh. Hello, Amanda. She's back.
Hi.
Jenna Walston.
Hello.
And we added a new person to the conversation, Adrienne Gustafson.
Hi there.
And so I wanted to bring Adrienne on because she has her story, which we'll get to. But honestly, after that podcast, it really, really made me think. I'm going to tell you, I've always said I would never homeschool my kids just because I didn't think I would be capable. I wouldn't have the patience. Like, there were so many things. I'm like, that's just not me. That's not my personality. But literally, it made me stop and think, especially with my youngest, because she's the one that's been complaining about school and she just wants something different. And so then I was like, okay, what do I do from here? Literally that next day, I'm like, we're going to look into this. And then I was like, Adrienne Gustafson did something amazing and put her kids in an art school. And I didn't know much about it. So I start messaging her. I'm like, I haven't talked to her in forever, but I need her help and her guidance. So anyways, yes, we're going to talk about this, and I'm making big changes for my child. She is going to be out of elementary school and public school and going to a place called Ardios, which we can talk about. But it's what do you call it, Adrienne? A hybrid?
It's a hybrid. It's a Christian arts-focused hybrid.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm excited.
Yeah.
So I thank you, ladies, for opening my eyes and my mind to new things. So, Adrienne.
Yes.
Let's talk about you, because we know Amanda has her two girls. And if you don't know, go back and listen to the homeschool podcast. It's called Homeschooling and Unschooling. And you can hear Jenna and Amanda talk about their kids and why they've decided to homeschool. But Adrienne, so let's hear from you. How many kids do you have and how long have you been doing this?
So I have 3 kids. I have 2 boys. One is 12 and one is 14, just turned 14. And then my daughter is 16. And I was one of those people who, for a long time, thought homeschooling was crazy. And I have said the phrase, I would never homeschool my kids, a lot. And I think to me, that seemed like I don't have the patience, I even am a teacher by profession. And I thought, I can't teach my kids. Those people are crazy. So my kids went to private school my daughter was there up until 7th grade. And in 7th grade, it got to the point where some things just weren't working. She was struggling in school she was struggling with some anxiety. And she just needed something different, but we didn't, homeschool was still not hey, I know, let's homeschool. Mm-hmm. So that was about the time I started working at Perimeter Church. And I was, teaching these vocal classes for kindergarten through 12th grade. And they gave me all these teenage interns to help me with these classes. And all of these interns were like this godsend. They were so just not your typical teenager. They all just these personalities, and they connected with little kids and with me. And just, I don't know, there was just something different about these kids. And I knew that my boss there, who runs the Arts Academy and the Kids Quest program there, I knew that they homeschooled their kids, and this thing called Ardios I kept hearing about Ardios, and so one day they said, all your interns are homeschoolers. And I was like, what? None of them wear denim jumpers, so they can't be homeschoolers. They're socialized. They can't be.
They don't wear those floral long,
nobody has hair braids. I know. They can't be those crazy homeschoolers.
That's hilarious.
So then I started asking more, still not thinking, oh, this is for us, we're going to homeschool. But I just kept asking questions. Like I remember sitting at a table of a bunch of parents, and I look around, I thought, I'm the only parent here that's not a homeschool parent. I said, let me just can I just ask you all my stereotypical, ha-ha questions about homeschooling? And, I said, again, number one, no one's got a denim jumper on. But, I kind of threw out all these things that I thought homeschool was. Like your kids, don't have a social life.
Yes.
And, I think it cracks me up now when I hear that, because I always say we don't homeschool. We do never at home school. I mean, not, global pandemic aside.
Yeah.
We are never in the house. We do our academics at home. But we are able to do so many things outside the house. And so the whole, how do your kids react with other kids? They're always around other kids, whether it's church or, RDOs. But we decided to make the change for Amelia mid-year 7th grade. And it was like, what? And I heard, I kept hearing about RDOs and the things they offered. And it was, they have theater and they have dance and they have music and they have, just everything that Amelia was so good at. And because she was struggling in school and struggling with friend issues, her confidence level just plummeted. And when your confidence level plummets, everything about you is just, worse.
Amen.
Yes.
That's so true.
That's Jamie.
Yeah, no, that's so true.
Right. And so it was just heartbreaking to watch this person who was so full of life and just loved to be, on stage and everything just kind of shut down. That's when it was like, okay, something really has to change. So then we heard more about RDOs, and I thought, Tim and I said, we'll try it. And worst case, she's going to have to graduate 8th grade anyway and go to a different school. We can just figure out something else. And so mid-year, I remember we surprised her with a t-shirt that said RDOs, and she had heard all about it from all these friends at church and just burst into tears.
Aww.
Could not wait to be a part of this. And she got there, and it was like this change in her. It was like a veil had been lifted, like her confidence she was around people who were encouraging her about the things she was interested in. And just, the whole art side of it was amazing and opened up so many opportunities for her. But then the academic side, again, when you're not confident in yourself as a student in math I think we could probably go around this table and probably at least two of us would be the person that always says, oh, I'm terrible at math. I'm terrible at math. And, you're not, there's nothing probably wrong with your brain that makes you wrong, bad at math, but somewhere along the lines, you got a little behind, you were embarrassed to speak up and ask, and then it, snowballed into, now I have anxiety when I try to write a tip at a restaurant.
Yes.
I can't.
Yes.
There's that math anxiety, but being able to stop and go back and do things and learn things the way she learned best, it sent her confidence through the roof. And it was just this miraculous change. It was like, there is Amelia again. She's back. And so she did a half of a semester there, and we thought, even though it's arts focused, there's so many benefits to this whole homeschool thing. Let's try the boys too. And again, we can always, try something else. And we did, and same thing for them. It was like, it's life changing. And I always go back to that confidence thing. When think about in your adult life, when you are confident about something, you succeed at it.
Yep.
Like this podcast, it was probably a crazy idea.
It was a crazy idea.
Yeah. And then you get to know the ins and outs of how to do it, and then your confidence raises because you feel like, hey, I can do this.
And I did it on my own, watching YouTubes on how to use the equipment and how to start a podcast. That's literally what I did.
Exactly. Exactly. So when you're, I would say if I had to pick one word that is the reason why homeschool works, it is confidence. Because when you're confident about anything, you can succeed in anything.
Yeah.
So it's been
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what opened my eyes was Amanda saying, because my thing was, with the 3 hours or the 2 hours a day that you're learning, how can you learn? Because we're so used to the traditional 8 hours a day in a classroom, sitting down and listening to the teacher, talk. But it made sense, like, going back to the podcast, I learned it.
Right.
Like, as humans, I think you said something, Amanda, like, as humans, we will figure out how to learn things.
Yes.
And that was a light bulb moment for me, because Corinne was just telling me before you were on the show that, Mommy, I know the work. I can do it. I just don't want to be timed, with these milestone tests. I don't want to have pressure to like do it so quickly, and you should know it now. And she's like, I just want to go at my own pace, and why do I have to go and sit there for all these hours? And I'm like, that is so true. Why?
A big light bulb moment for me with the boys, especially, because we still were like, well, it's an art school. Are they really gonna, is that gonna be their thing? And for Zachary, yes, he's like a spitting image of Amelia. He loves the stage. Micah's more like, nope, I'll just run the sound booth back here.
Yeah. He doesn't want to be center of attention.
Yeah. So the first, I think week that we were doing school, like academics, we have like a homeschool room in our house. We're sitting there, and Amelia it's a big table, and so Amelia's at one side and she's doing her stuff, and Micah's over here, and Zachary's sitting here, and he was, he has like a bouncy ball chair, so he's bouncing, and he's got his headphones on, and he's listening to Skillet and Daft Punk, and he's singing, and he's successfully doing his math assignment. And Amelia said, Zachary, because he was driving her insane, she needs quiet, like I do. And she said, Zachary, if you were in a regular school, you would not be able to do that. And I was like, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, he is not sort of forced to sit. I mean, you can't do that in a school situation. You drive everybody insane. So I figured out quickly that, okay, Amelia works better not at the table with us. She works better with quiet. But I thought that's how he learns best.
Yep.
And he was succeeding. And so having the freedom to let him do that was,
and it's okay.
Exactly.
I love that. I honestly wish I knew this information when my oldest was younger, because she would have thrived, because she's at SCAD and she loves theater. She doesn't want to be in front of the crowd, but she's behind the scenes writer and all that. This would have been perfect for her. And when she was that age, I was just like old school, like get good grades, and just I just wish I had that, then, but we're paying for SCAD, so I guess that, that overshadows everything that I did when she was younger.
We do continuously learn.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things also that we talked about, I think, in the podcast, was creating self-learners. They will always be able to, you take that through life.
Right.
Once you get a degree, you don't stop learning.
Right.
Once you get a job, you don't stop learning, So I'm proud of your growth. I think Kaylin is as well.
Yeah. I know, but I feel bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say Artios needs to pay you money for seriously, because you told me,
I know,
and I told
so
Jenna, and Jenna's told other people, and now everyone's like, "What's this Artios thing? We need to go there." That's one avenue, but for me, I know it's gonna work for us. It's gonna work perfectly for us. So thank you.
Oh yeah.
I appreciate it.
That we needed that so much, because again, I was I'm never going to homeschool person, and I don't know how to, I'm one of those people, I'm horrible at math. I'm not going to teach algebra 2.
Yeah.
Thank goodness Tim can do math. But, I was like, I don't know how to find curriculums. And so I think one of the reasons Artios, and there's several hybrids like Veritas and Classical Conversations that also function kind of like that, is that they do their academics. They have a teacher. Like when we first started, my kids did the whole academic day. So Amelia did all her academic classes, and it was great because it was like a safety net for me. I thought, at least I'm not the teacher, and I can just kind of figure out how all this works, and then we can, maybe do our own thing as we need to. But the other nice thing is that these teachers at Artios, while they are actual, teachers with degrees, they're also homeschool moms. And so they get how this works. And I'll never forget when Micah came home with an assignment, and it was something covering like a big unit in history. And the options for the test was either you could take this test, or you could build this sculpture describing stuff, or you could make a Google PowerPoint. It was like all these different things that I thought, this one is the one that fits him, not the test, not sculpting out of clay, although he did do that once and it was really cool. This thing about the Holocaust, I was like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then it broke, unfortunately, the whole thing crumbled. But
so they give them options, not everyone has to do this or everyone has to do
and
that.
I get that, again, because they're homeschool teachers. But I felt, and that really works well for some people, but after that 1 year, I felt like we were still trying to plug a public school peg into a homeschool box, because we were still, as good as the classes were, we were still, sort of chained. I don't want to say chained because that sounds too negative, but we were stuck with the assignments and everything from someone else. And it just, if we wanted to change a little bit, we couldn't yet. And so that's where I kind of found, someone told me once, like, never go to a homeschool convention your first year of homeschooling. And I listened to that advice.
Why? Why did you
Because
say that?
it's like,
It's so overwhelming.
it's like if we say, hey,
Really?
do you
It
want
is.
to
So many
play
options.
Uno? And you're like, no, I'm going to go to Vegas instead. Like, it's
Right.
so overwhelming. And so I did wait a year. And then you walk into the convention center and there's curriculum. And when you know kind of how your kid learns, then you're like, okay, I'm going to go straight to this, and
Right.
this is what I need.
That's
and
some great
that
advice, yeah.
helped tremendously, because I could also seek out all of these sessions that all these people were doing, like how to homeschool kids in different grades. And high school and college prep was when I was like, I'm so scared I'm going to mess this up. So I kind of sought out all of those. But, once we found curriculum that works, it was like, okay, we got this. And it's, there are days where we struggle, of course, but I wish I had known how much easier it was, because it just, when you have no idea what homeschool is, to think about it seems like just this overwhelming stuff that you're never going to, because most people are not teachers. They don't have a teaching degree, but that's okay, because it just, you learn as you go.
Yep.
It's
And a lot of people are really afraid to pull the trigger.
Yes.
To, initially, especially if their kids are already in a public or a private school. I've seen so many posts, especially recently, about homeschool or moms who have joined the groups on Facebook or what have you, and are like, I'm so scared to pull the trigger. And, I always try and respond to those, because I'm like, just do it, because, once you do it,
right.
it's so easy.
And like you said, Adrienne, if you do it and it's horrible,
Right.
then you can put them back in.
in.
Exactly.
Like, I think
Right.
as humans, we think if we make this decision,
That's gonna
this is
ruin their
it,
life
or
forever.
this is it. It's like, no, you can.
Plans the trajectory of
Yeah,
their life.
no.
There's no.
Yeah, no.
Well, and you remember how hard it was for you to undo your thinking.
Oh,
You know?
yeah.
So not only are the kids having to unschool or figure how to do things differently, the parent does. And we
Yes.
feel so
Yes.
responsible for every failure and every success that our child has, that's why, they're having a hard time,
Right.
because God forbid it goes wrong. Well, they haven't had the experience yet that when it goes wrong, that's good, because you've learned something that doesn't work.
That's so true.
I've had so much trial and error with what is working
Right.
for Jade. Amanda was so surprised to see him up and showered this morning at 9:30 when she walked in. She was like, wow, you're up.
Yeah.
Because again, like with the sleep schedule, he wants to get up at sunrise. He is happier at those hours. And so I said, go for it. Well, he didn't make sunrise, but
Close
nonetheless,
enough.
he was up at 7 and this may be our new mojo. And then he gets left alone, later on in the day.
Yep.
So constantly readjusting. It's all part of our learning.
And
Yes.
that unschooling is, I didn't realize how important that was. More so for me, I think, because my kids have been in private school all their lives. That's all I knew. And it was such that's why I kept feeling like I was trying to plug private school into our homeschool. And that's just, it doesn't work. And then you feel like a failure. And it's just, you finally begin to realize the freedoms that you have, and it's not trying to cram, I tried to do everything just like they did at school. We'll do spelling, and then we'll do this, and da-da-da-da-da.
Okay, I was going to ask, what does that mean? Okay, so you wanted to have like your own little classroom at home. Okay.
Yes. So again, I found,
because I find myself thinking that way. Okay, we're gonna start this, and I'm like, well, I need to get some input from other people because I don't want that. That's the whole point of taking her out of school.
Right, and I feel like that still has taken me, a couple of years to learn what is the best for each one of my kids.
Sure.
And so part of that was finding a curriculum. I remember I went to a session at a convention that was about, how do you homeschool kids that you need them to all be independent? And we found the BJU, Bob Jones University curriculum, and a lot of it is like you're watching a teacher online, and then you have the traditional books, and that's still like, to me, I needed the real school books, and everything. And just learning to let go of that. I wish someone had said the word unschool to me as a parent and told me how to do that, because I think I would have figured out a lot of things faster. And I will say one thing that we have done, which this is not needed, but I needed this, is we work with a accreditation agency, and so for Amelia, and so she helps us, like, this is what she needs to graduate, this is what she needs if she wants to be considered for the Hope Scholarship with Zell Miller, this is the SAT dates, because that was, I think homeschooling a high schooler is a whole lot different than, because they have to have chemistry and they have to have algebra. And I thought, I don't want to mess this up. And so what she'll have at the end of this is an accredited transcript. And you absolutely don't need an accredited transcript. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember at one of this, these homeschool conventions, I was talking to this lady and I was trying to pick curriculums. I'm like, I'm just so, scared that I'm going to pick the wrong thing. And she's like, well, where does she want to go to college? And I was like, I don't know. She's in 9th grade. We just started talking. And she said, well, I'm the homeschool admissions director for Berry College. And I was like, I'm sorry, that's a thing?
Wow. The homeschool director.
Yes. And she said, we seek out homeschoolers because they are self-driven, and they, even if you read their list of requirements for admission into college, it's yes, the SAT, and yes, grade point average, but we look at the person and what they, do they volunteer? Are they involved in lots of things? And that, I would say, is the other huge thing for Amelia. Is I got tired of having to say, I'm sorry, you can't, I know you're amazing at dance and you want to pursue this, but you have too much homework. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, you can't volunteer at church, another night of the week because you have too much homework. Mm-hmm. Homework ruled our lives in private school. Yeah. And, now she's getting to do all those things because we do school during the day, and that opens up her evenings.
And there's no homework.
Else. Right. And there's no homework because I think homework is the craziest thing ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just, I remember saying once to one of my boys, I'm sorry, you cannot go outside and play like a normal kid who needs fresh air and sunshine because you have so much homework to do.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And, that was one of the biggest changes, is that it opened up, and again, built everybody's confidence, because I'm doing this cool thing like Micah does, tech and sound for the, he's my tech guy when I do my classes at Perimeter, and he loves that. And that's one more thing that, you're adding onto your schedule in the evening, that if you're in a traditional school, it's hard. You either pack your schedule so tight that everybody's just crazy, or, you do this to where you've got the freedom and you're not so overwhelmed. And that's when it takes a toll emotionally. And, I loved what y'all said the last podcast about the emotional aspect. I mean, for Amelia's health class, we have done, not just like a traditional health class, but it's been more about mental health. I think every kid, especially teenagers, needs some sort of, mental health and anxiety prevention. And I mean, there's so much that can go into that, but you don't really get that if you're in that box of, traditional school where this is the curriculum and,
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who is a child and family therapist, and she's been doing that for 17 years. And she's one of my dear, dear friends. So I called her up and I wanted her professional input. And she says there's absolutely nothing wrong with homeschooling. The difference that she sees is if you're going to do it, you have to go all in. You can't just be like, oh, we're just gonna, wing it or whatever. You have to go all in. She said 150%. And because there's always these stereotypes that they're not going to be socialized and they're not going to know how to interact with people. And, but she says there's the co-ops, which I have to research that, to plug into. And if I read an article, it's like, if you have siblings, you're socializing with your siblings.
Exactly.
It's not like you're handling conflict within the home. You're handling conflict if you're going to these co-ops and being around other kids.
Yes.
So you are being socialized. I think some people think homeschool, it's like I told her, is it like the Duggars where they're just at home? But really, I mean, there's a gazillion of them, so they have to handle conflict. But, people think they're just like sheltered little human beings, and it's so different now. So she says, as long as you're exposing them to things, it will lessen the anxiety. Then that's the biggest thing is if you shelter them too much, she said, they're 19, 20 years old going to see her because they're so anxious because they're going out into this world that's very structured and very this and that, and they're just not used to that. So yes, being flexible, having that freedom, but also creating some kind of structure and being all in and not so hands off. Like, we're just going to just go look at the rose bushes over there, So I was like, all right. So what else did she say? She said a ton. Like, I wrote it down. But that was like the gist of it. And then she also mentioned learning disabilities. So she said there's kids, if they have a learning disability or if they're being bullied or if they're, have too much anxiety, your instinct for most of us, you want to just save your kids and take them out. And she says, that's fine. But if you have a learning disability in the public school system, they have a lot of programs. And if they decide they're going to go to college and they want to use those programs later on and you haven't done anything, I don't know a lot about it. She was throwing IEDs and all these things
IEPs.
out. What is it? IDPs?
IEPs.
IEPs. She said if they do that like in second grade and you decide to pull them out, if they go to college and you've never done any other testing all those years and you go to college, you're like, well, we're not going to offer you these programs or these special treatment because the last time you took this test was like in second grade. So just kind of being aware of those things, that if you plan on doing that in the future, you have to prepare for that. So I don't know anything about that. She was just...
So to add on to that, and I know it's different from state to state.
Yes, she's up north.
But in this state, in the state of Georgia, you as a homeschooler can access the public school programs like that for learning disabilities.
And she did mention that also with activities, which I didn't know.
Also in the state of Georgia, they just passed it this year, starting this fall. Homeschool kids from 6th grade to 12th grade can participate in extracurricular activities.
So she told me that and I was like, really? I had never heard of that.
Well, we're all taxpayers.
Yeah. So that's so cool. I don't know if most people know that.
Well, I think in this day and age, there is, I think the main struggle so many families who do traditional school face is that they're just too busy. They just cannot do it all. And in this day and age, there are, you could pick anything, and there are probably 10 things around us, that they could be involved in. So, again, the socialization, issue kind of cracks me up because it's like there's so much out there, and all you have to do is, get involved, and you can because you have the time to do it.
Yeah, right. And I think for, the majority of people, it sounds like you ladies know what you're doing. But she was just saying for those who just think it's like the easy way out, you need to teach your kids socialization skills and also conflict resolution. So don't say, okay, you're being bullied at school. The best thing to do is just walk away. And then you don't have those tools because when you're older, we're going to have to do that. Like no one's going to give you a pass on that. So
I'd like to add a little bit too, because those are great ideas. Those are great opinions. But again, what works for one person does not work for everyone. I am also a firm believer right now that anybody who is into rearing children in a more positive direction for a healthier adult outcome, there are different ways to get each child there.
Yeah.
My experience right now is that if Jayla, let's just say, was to go to public school, all my kids had IEPs. She will have an IEP. She will be tested. I don't want her in that box.
Yeah.
I don't. I know from experience that I have limited the tantrums. I have gotten her to breathe and slow down. I have given her tools to not be labeled. I feel a lot of the labeling is happening because we're trying to fit them all in one box.
I agree with that.
So my opinion now is I want someone straight out of school who is studying child psychology, because what she was taught and what she has learned is also outdated as the school system.
And this is why I wanted to bring it to the table, because I knew that there was going to be opinions. So I'm like, let me tell you what she said. And
Not that what she said is wrong.
I want
and
you.
it might
I want
be
you
beautifully for somebody else, but for me, I'm still punching holes in that old system.
Yeah.
Don't label my child. Don't send me to a school who isn't going to give them what they need because they don't have the certain box checked.
Yes.
No, thank you. Pass.
Yeah.
Well, I think that
But for those kids, for those kids who do need the extra resources,
Exactly.
who need the IEP, they should definitely take advantage of those
Absolutely.
programs.
And also, I think,
I'm not deterring it, but I'm just saying they may not belong in that box. So let's figure that out
I agree.
first.
I agree with that.
I think it's a very knee-jerk reaction now to say, oh, your child is, struggling with anything. They something is wrong and they need to be in that box. And it may, like Zachary, he may just have needed a bouncy ball to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
because he has a ton of energy.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly
Or
my
Micah,
point.
who
Yes,
struggles
exactly.
with the timed multiplication test.
Because the anxiety kicks in and you forget everything you
Exactly.
learned.
Yes.
We found this little program about learning multiplication tables, and it was about stories and connecting. And it took us a week doing this program, and it's like I know my multiplication tables better now because of this. And so it wasn't that something, he had a learning issue, just he learns differently.
Yeah.
He's more of a visual person.
Yeah, right.
And you're right. I think too many people get, one little thing is slightly off and they're in that box.
But I am a homeschool mother who's doing the work herself. I'm learning right now how to emotionally regulate.
Right.
And so they're watching the progress with me, and they like me much better now that I can slow myself down.
Yeah.
Now that I can say, you know what, I'm going to take a breather and be back, where before my breathing was in between yelling. So they're watching my self evolve, and they're taking the time to, Jaden cracked me up this morning because he hasn't woke her up in a long time, right? She used to wake up so angry. So angry. She doesn't like to be messed with. She likes to be cuddled in the morning.
I agree. I'm like, if you're going to wake me up, I need you to softly just,
Yeah.
Philip knows that. If he's going to wake me up, it has to be very gentle.
Exactly.
I'm going to be a monster coming out.
someone's
Why are you doing?
But someone has taken the time to nurture you and learn you and care for you in the way that you need.
Yes, I agree
Good
with-
man, Philip.
Yes.
Bravo.
Well, I think it's because I lashed out a few times.
Yeah, so
he's afraid of that side of
But
me.
rather than teaching you not to lash out, he knows how to get you your needs met and his as well.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's important.
So the point was, Jaden he was so proud of being up. He's like, I've got her. I'm going to go wake her up. I'm like, oh.
You're like, let me see this.
Because it's wonderful now, because I have to now start her with a hug. I used to be like, come on, let's go. We got to do this. We got to do that. And instead now, she can't even think about what's ahead of her other than just being held and comforted. But I've learned that about her. So Jaden, his relationship with her is very playful and fun. And we went to the zoo yesterday, and she got like a giraffe stuffed animal. And so he took it and started bopping her on the head with it. Or no, I take that back. He went to let her get it, and he snatched it back. And she yelled out, "Why do you need to make me angry first thing in the morning?"
No.
And I said, so her nice way was saying, Jaden, can you please be softer, gentler, kinder in the morning? That's really what she meant to say. We both cracked up laughing because she hasn't figured that out yet.
Yeah. Well, she's 8.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need to learn how to meet their needs, because they're only 8. We can't expect them to wake up happy. We can't expect them to be who we dreamt of them to be.
They need to be who they are.
Yes.
And that was a good point that you made, Jenna, about you doing the work on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And having them watch you change. I hear from so many moms, oh, I can't homeschool. My kids don't listen to me. Well, maybe you need to figure out why they don't listen to you.
Holy crap. Yes, Amanda. When I hear that, I'm like, what do you mean they don't listen to you?
I know. I'm like,
that's foreign in my house. What do you mean? Oh, yeah. That's a whole nother podcast for another time. Because that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, and I've kind of chilled out a little bit. So, I might have to say things a few times, but they know when the monster comes out. And she didn't have to come out that much anymore. Only for that little one. Those little ones really get us, don't they?
they do.
They're the ones that help us grow the most, Leonette.
Oh my gosh. They do.
true.
She's the one that has me homeschooling. Like, what the heck?
Who have I become?
I know. What has she done with Leonette? Oh my gosh.
I'm grateful for the young ones because without a doubt, I could handle the two. Mm-hmm. Life was smooth. I could handle it. I could juggle everything. But that third one came in, and you're like, wow, I only have two hands.
Yeah,
I can't fit another schedule into my already 4 schedules. So they make you adjust to make life easier, more doable, less stressful. And you have to break the cycle of that old keeping up with the Joneses. And, well, so-and-so does this class, and so-and-so. Well, my so-and-so was driving to Target last night, 10 minutes to 10, to get my precious little daughter a T-shirt because she couldn't go to school. She had nothing clean after 4 loads of laundry. But that was mine to take on.
Yeah.
And I, in turn, got mad at her because that's not what's important. The fact that her insecurities, when you were talking about your daughter and the veil coming off, I was over here like, bravo. Yes. Because you see them come out of the school and their heads are down, or they're fake laughing and trying to get along and look cool and not walk the right way or the wrong way. And this stage of life, middle school, is so imperative.
Right.
And I was thinking this morning when I woke up, what I wanted to try to relay that I've learned lately, and what I've come up with is that the kids just all want to be accepted. The kids just all want to fit in, as do we. But if we're putting them in the boxes and we're, checking things off, and Mom, I only got this on my grade, and now I'm going to be this, and all the anxieties and all of that. Why do we have to go so fast?
Right. And I've learned that they learn and retain. So, like, if I think back to I grew up in the public school, and it was a good public school. But if I think back to my schooling and what I really learned and what I remember don't remember my spelling tests, and I remember hating algebra, but I remember experiences. And some of the most positive things Amelia had at the private school was a teacher who would do not a necessarily a written test, read this information, spit it out, but experiences like dress up days for this or project days. And we do a ton of that because that's where they retain all that information. They can have a discussion about, the Civil War or history or something. And if it was just a matter of reading a textbook and then memorizing it and putting it on paper, that is gone from their memory. I don't remember any of that from but I remember trips that my family took. And I remember, you remember experiences, and that's such a freedom. Like, we were just on vacation to this little island. And so,
girl, when I saw those pictures, we love that place.
It's magical. It was magical.
We used to call it Defowski, but it's Defusky. We call it Defusky, but it is the best thing. We went there a few years ago for spring break. And there's nothing to do, but my kids loved it.
And the history of the island. So we do with the boys. Amelia has arts classes on Fridays, but with my 2 boys, we used to call it Science Fridays, but then we started doing things that weren't science, so we call them Fun Fact Fridays. And if you're in the homeschool community, you know what a unit study is. Like, you pick a topic, and then you can relate English and writing and math and history and every subject, traditional subject that there is, you can relate into whatever.
One unit,
right? So it's kind of like, I don't call them Unit Study Fridays because that would sound boring, but that's kind of what they are. But we did the history of Defusky Island, and when we got there, we went and saw all the historical things that we had learned about, and it was so interesting. And we looked at the map and how we would drive there, and they even made like packing lists, and they, things that even as an adult, that's a good thing to know how to
Life
do.
skills.
Life
Yes.
skills.
This
Absolutely.
island, you need to take a ferry or a boat to get on, and there's no grocery store, so you have to
Really prepare.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And you have to drive on golf carts too.
Yes.
So it's the coolest
And
place.
even the
It's
wildlife there, like
Yeah.
they have these squirrels called fox squirrels, I think, that look like little lemurs, and so we researched about them. And,
Nice.
It's the coolest.
So we love to travel too, and
Yeah.
unfortunately we haven't been able to travel as much recently. But 3 years ago we took a trip over to Barcelona, Spain, and got on a cruise ship and went to France and Italy. We went to like 5 different ports in Italy and Kotor, Montenegro, and then back to Barcelona. So what I did with my kids was we studied about Spain, and we learned about the culture, and we studied about France, and we learned, some different things. We knew that when we were in Italy, we were going to go to the Uffizi, and we were going to go to the Sistine Chapel, and we were going to go see all these famous works of art. So I remember I had Rowan on the floor underneath our coffee table drawing, a picture of, like Michelangelo did. And we studied Michelangelo, and so we researched all the places. We also 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, so in 2019, September of 2019, we went to Washington State and took a cruise up into Alaska. And so we did lap books on Washington State and
lap books.
Alaska. And those are so much fun. And those are great ways for younger kids to do unit studies.
Yeah.
So, and a lap book is it's like 3 folders glued together, and so when you open it opens up wide, and then you put different, like we did the state flags, and we did the year that the state was founded, and we did some different facts
turned me
about
on
the
to those
state.
before our cruise, and the kids like it because they color it in. They
color it
build
in,
it.
and
They
And
make it.
I thought with mine too, they're 14 and 12. I thought this may seem babyish, but they loved it.
Yep.
We did a lap book, and it's like this. I mean, it's like huge.
You open it up, and
But we did it all about. We started in November on. Actually, we started a little bit before November, but it's all about the election. And it wasn't just like I wish I had learned more about this growing up, because I could not have an adult conversation about the way our electoral process works and this, and when voting laws and suffrage and all this, and they're doing little mini projects each day. Like one was on suffrage, and one was on the different rights to vote, and one was the cabinet, and I mean just every single thing that goes into what is a part of our lives today, and you need as an adult to be able to have a conversation and know those things. And I learned so much from it. But I remember thinking, as they're like coloring and cutting, like this is not second grade work. Like I could give them a textbook and a test on this, and they could do it and then forget everything. But they're like immersed in this. And again, that's just another one of those creative ways that you're building these learning foundations that's completely not like they would get in a traditional school, but they're probably going to hold on to it.
Yes. I mean, even now, this was 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now that we went to Washington, Alaska. And just recently, there was a question, I want to say it was like on Jeopardy or something like that, this is the 49th state of the United States. And my kids were like, Alaska.
Right.
They knew that. How many second and fifth graders really can tell you that can recall that. Probably not too many, because they took the test on it and then it's forgotten.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I another thing also with Corinne, like she's very, I would like to call her a little entrepreneur, because she's always like, I want to have a bakery, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. So she made her own website recently, figured out how to make lip gloss, ordered all the stuff with my Amazon account, like, mommy, I ordered, all by herself, set up an Etsy account all by herself. I'm like, how did you learn how to do this? At school? I was just wanting to know. I knew it was in school. She's like, I just, looked it up. I just figured it out myself, mommy. Like, I'm smart. I can figure it out myself. They would never teach this at school, is what she said. And now she has this nice little business of selling lip glosses. If anybody wants to buy it, it's Kitty K Collections on Etsy, or you can just
Link will
message
be
me
in the bio.
Yeah. But I went to the gym and I'm like, hey ladies, my little girl is selling, and they're like, oh, we'll buy it. I'm like, how cool is that?
Perfect example. Had you not changed your thinking and really indulging in what makes your child grow, all that would have to be put on hold until after graduation.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like you were saying, with all the homework that's going to come along with it, you don't have time. So how cool of her, because the road to success, especially being an entrepreneur, is, as we know, so let her have some of her failures now while she's under the roof and experiences of growth.
Right.
And,
Well, and I told her, I'm like, since we're going to do RDOs, you'll have time to work on quote unquote your business, because really now she goes to school, she's there all day, and then when she comes home she like wants to unwind. She didn't have the energy to do any extra stuff. They're tired by the time they get home, hungry, tired, and just done.
Well, and then the middle school, like I was talking about,
even worse.
Why does it have to be the most uncomfortable stage of life? We all would say middle school is awful. Sure, there's hormones involved, but why does it have to be awful?
I was in Europe, my middle school years, I lived there, and it's so different. Like, I don't have that middle school experience at all. You had so much more freedom there. Like, you can just go home. It's lunchtime. You can go home, eat lunch, come back. Like, it's not so restricted like it is here. They're not robots over there.
And if you look at all the rates over there, suicide is non-existent.
No.
Like ours.
So I don't have the same American experience.
So I think it's imperative that we realize they don't have to be. You're living proof that they didn't have to be.
Kaylin's middle school years were the worst for her. She hated it. Hated. Especially 7th grade and 8th grade. Like, she just... It was miserable.
Yeah. So when moms say like, "Oh, it's just those years," no, it's
it
not.
doesn't have to be.
No, it's not.
I didn't have those years.
The parents that dread teenage years, I can't. The teenage years are going to be awful. Well, why? Why are they going to be awful? Because they've learned it from their peers. They're learning how to be 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds. From other 13, 14, 15-year-olds.
From other parents that don't know how to handle their children.
Exactly. and they aren't learning how to be 13, 14, 15-year-olds from adults either. No. I mean, we're bringing them up to be adults in this. I mean, this is our job. We are bringing them up to be adults in this world. And yes, we want them to be kids, but they don't need to learn how to be kids from other kids. Or they don't need to learn how to be adults from other kids. I mean, because the other kids haven't ever been adults. So why are we expecting them to teach our kids how to be adults?
I love the phrase iron sharpens iron. And I feel like I do. I have so many people who are struggling through these teenage years, and it's just the emotional impact on these kids and the anxiety that happens now, more so than it did when we were growing up. But I had a friend who, she's been a public school teacher for years and years, and I remember her saying to me when I told her my kids were going to do homeschool, she said, well, how what's going to happen when they get out into the real world? Like, they've got to be. And I thought, and that phrase iron sharpens iron kept coming back to me, and I thought, okay, so my kids have they're relating with each other. We have different ages in our house of kids, and so they're learning to have social skills with each other. And then, at RDOs, it's through 12th grade, and they do such an amazing job of integrating all ages. You don't stay with your 5th grade class, and with adults at church. And, if I'm surrounding my kids with not just our family unit, but other kids and adults who are speaking good into their lives, when they get to the real world and they're faced with a problem, with, let's say they're offered drugs, back to the DARE years, when they're growing up, some crazy person on the street just randomly offers you drugs. If they're being sharpened, by all these people who are speaking good and modeling good, positive behavior, they're not going to go, oh, I don't know what this drug is. I guess I'll take it.
What are drugs?
I'm freaking out because I'm in the real world now.
Watch out.
You have the skills to know, that you're a good person, your values, and so it just, that argument just falls apart when people say, oh, they're so sheltered. I think it's an argument that if you're just not in the homeschool world at all, seems valid, but once you're in it, it just
I was asked that actually not too long ago. What is he gonna do when school's done? When he's 18? Like we don't.
What is your kid gonna do when school's done?
But the thing of it is, what is your kid gonna do? We don't know that.
Yeah,
but what
none of
we're
us
doing
do.
right now, what's the most important is to teach them. Like you were saying, your kids are learning to walk together. They're learning how to compromise. They're learning how to deal with difficult situations without lashing back with anger or leaving.
Right.
Yes.
And they're not already in a completely overwhelming, you're bad at math and you're bad at this and you need to do more homework at night, just this constant state of anxiety. Yeah. I remember, with Artios, they have like a show week where every single day it's a rehearsal, and she loves every second of it. I'm just like, I don't know how you're surviving, but she loves every moment of it. But if we had to pile on a full day of school, that's a week where we can go, okay, this is show week. School. There's no school, and there's no homework, and there's no this and this and this. And then, it just becomes, it takes, I look at her and I think if I had to deal with, a huge project at work or something, or a show that I was doing, and I had to do all these other things like schoolwork and pile on, I would need to be in my room, quiet, maybe a Xanax. And these kids can't say like, I just need. And so we as their parents have to be the one that is able to say, okay, we're going to step back from this and focus on this.
Yes.
And then next week, and you haven't lost a week of spelling and algebra.
No.
You've given them like tools to say what's important this week. And it's like, if that's not one of the biggest life skills.
She learned how to be a part of a production and what is involved with that and what goes, like that's life skills, in my opinion.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves that I hear throughout this whole pandemic is, especially talking about the kids in schools and then, they've lost a whole year of learning. They've lost a whole year of learning? Yeah. Well, what are they learning, though? They're learning how to survive in a pandemic. They're learning how to maybe cook their lunch because mom and dad are busy working. They are learning how to become more independent and do things around the house. They are learning to direct themselves. Even if they're not sitting in front of a screen, on a Zoom call with their teacher, they are still learning. They have not lost a whole year of learning. Yeah. They are just learning different things.
Exactly.
Which are life skills that are so important.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel it was fantastic for everybody to go through it.
Oh, yeah.
100%. I mean, some kids are dying for school to come back because their parents aren't like us and looking out for them. They're just like, God, when is this going to end? And how does that make them feel?
Yeah.
Like the countdown to school. Oh, we only have, we're on the countdown to when it's over. But then the countdown will start to, when do they go back? And that doesn't feel good.
No.
And the kids hear the parents say that. And it makes me sad.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like with Kaylin, because she was brought up in the public school system, so this is what she knows. So when the pandemic hit, she's like, that's what she thought. Right. I'm like, first of all, you went into SCAD way ahead. So you're almost a sophomore when you're a freshman. I'm like, you haven't lost anything.
Yeah.
So she started doing internships where she can just do it because she's a writer. So she did some blogs. She did, in Atlanta, they had a theater going on. So she was part of a little production. And so she's been doing so many things that she would have never done had she been in school because she would be focused on her classes and her projects and whatever. I'm like, you didn't, like you said, Amanda, you didn't lose anything. Like you're actually doing hands-on things that you want to do when you graduate. Yep. So her anxiety,
the motto of homeschool in general.
Well, she doesn't have that homeschool mentality. She has that, oh my gosh, I'm losing a year. And I'm like, but you're not. You're really on track and you're doing all these awesome things. And you're doing it on your own. Like you took the initiative. I didn't have to tell you, you have to get a job and you have to do this. Because she's so high anxiety. I'm like, this is a year just to chill out. Yep. Yay for you. Because she didn't want to do online because SCAD is an art school. What are you going to do online? So she just took the year off and she did awesome things. So it's like you have to retrain your brain to just, I don't know. And I'm trying to teach her that because she's still young. It's like, let's undo all that training that we put into you. Yeah. The school system, even me, I blame myself for putting a lot of pressure on her to excel. And so I'm trying to undo that. And she's in therapy and all these things. But, you know, but yeah, I think after a while she got it. Like, you're right. I'm doing things and I did it on my own. I reached out to people. I learned how to interview, you know, things that I'm like, you would have never done this, Kaylin. So we have to just think, okay, this is right in front of us instead of being woe is me. Oh my gosh.
Now is the time to see people who are going to thrive and people who are going to need more therapy later on. Or keep it shoved down and be angry the rest of their life. I don't know what. But what I feel like right now is the perfect time to instill all this emotional regulation, to give them the gifts. Businesses through pandemics went out of business. Some businesses did better because they pivot and turn. They changed what was needed. That's what parents need to do right now, is act as if this is a business. Or at least I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I always, when I get emotional about things, I start to look at it as a business. The ones that survived, pivot. The ones that survived, make change. Not doing things the same way over and over and over doesn't work anymore.
I love that, Jenna.
And that's so scary for, like you were saying, to jump out of that, to just pull the trigger and do it, because, you know, most of us did not grow up as a homeschool student, and this is the way you do it. This is the way you get into college, and this is how you become successful. And it's almost impossible to open up anybody's eyes. Like, if things were going great at the school before, you know, we made the jump, we probably would not have made the jump. And so it's almost like it takes something bad or a huge struggle to then go, oh, like, I wish, you know, even having said, I would never homeschool my kids, that's crazy. I wish I had done it sooner. You know, I just, there's so many things with Amelia, and in high school, they do need all those things to, you know, graduate and, you know, get into college if that's their path. But there's so much freedom I have with the boys, like these Fun Fact Fridays. Like, one Friday, we built a picnic table from scratch. Went to Home Depot, you know, researched how to build it, and bought nuts and bolts, and, you know, that it was one of those unit studies that's like, okay, now I remember as a kid, you know, my dad would be like, hey, I need you to come out here and hold this board while I circular saw this thing. And like, I took those skills just from him saying, hey, come do this with me. And I feel like that's what our Fridays especially are. Hey, let's do this. And it's all these skills. And, you know, I wish we had started so much sooner, because I feel like, you know, even though we're doing it now, there's so much we could have brought Amelia into. I mean, she has a lot more time than she would, but, you know, it's really neat to be able to.
I know you were talking about show day at Artios, and so we're in the middle of Tech Week right now. My oldest daughter, Rowan, she rehearses with 2 different theater companies, and so tonight is her opening night of Little Mermaid. And so she's been at what they call Tech Week, which is a full week of dress rehearsals and lighting and, you know, all the technical stuff, make sure that the blocking is good, and all the theater terms that you guys probably don't understand if you're not into theater. But
I just know through Kaylin, because she loves theater, so she tries to tell me these things and I don't know.
So so actually after this podcast, I have to go home and do hair and makeup so that I can get her to call time on time. But but yes, this week, I knew that this week was going to be crazy because she's 2 different characters in 4 shows. So 2 shows, she's one character, and in 2 shows, she's a different character. And I have to do 2 different makeup looks, 2 different hairstyle looks. And I have to be there to transition her from when she's doing, you know, this character to the other character. And, so I knew that this week was going to be crazy. And so I was like, you know what, Rowan, we don't have to do school this week. We are in between our units anyway, and it just fell perfectly, and we're going to take the week off, and you just focus on rehearsal. But she is the only homeschool kid in her theater company. And so all of these other kids have to get up and go to school, and there are at least probably half of them are middle schoolers, and the rest are elementary level. So I know that the homework is crazy, and I know that all the things that they have to do, they're rehearsing every night this week from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So she's not even getting home until 9:30. And then for the kids that are in school to get up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to go to school all day and then come home, do hair and makeup and make it to rehearsal on time or show on time. I can't even
that's
imagine.
a long
Well,
day.
think
Like,
about
I
as
can't
an
even
adult
imagine.
how you would feel.
Oh, I would be a puddle on the floor every day.
Yeah.
Wow, that's because like Corinne now gets off the bus around 4.
Right.
And if she was doing that, she would have to turn around and get to
Get
that's
to
a
rehearsal
lot.
by
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Creating overachievers.
And then we wonder why there's so much chaos and
Anxiety.
anxiety and
Yes.
depression and suicide in our country.
And the suicide rate among younger kids, among elementary kids, is growing exponentially. And it's so heartbreaking because we were putting so much pressure on these kids.
I can't remember the last statistics, but with our generation, we didn't know someone to commit suicide till their 20s, Now these kids are graduating, and I don't know, I know it's raised a lot, but I know the last statistic was last year was 23 people.
Really?
By the time they graduate
high school.
Wow.
So you think about that. Whoever your kids are, cheering with or playing ball with, someone's not going to be there at graduation because of the pressures that are put on them, the constant reminders of what they're not doing well in, trying to focus without sleep, not making self-care, self-worth. That's the one thing I liked about RDOs. We don't have a church we belong to. God is not huge in our world. However, what I loved about what they're doing is bringing back to the basics, which is everything through your heart.
Yes.
You don't have to believe in what everybody else believes in to not understand that if you just go back to the basics of the Bible or whatever it is, it's a good thing to follow.
Right.
So they said, we don't want them to have good self-esteem. We want them to have such high self-worth. Self-esteem is how you speak to yourself. But in the schools, self-esteem is how many likes did they get on Instagram?
Right.
What's the hottest new shoe or what? And sure, that's going to be important to certain people, and it needs to be important to certain people because we need fashion designers, and we need. But in a whole, it shouldn't be what is important.
Right.
Those kids don't have worth because they're reminded too much of they're not enough.
Right.
So that caught me because self-esteem, that's your own inner work.
Yeah.
And that goes back to Brett, like, who do you talk to the most? I keep saying that to my kids, and Jamie woke up very cranky today. I said, okay, now you get to make better decisions, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And she was looking at me like, get out of my face. But I wanted her to handle it better. And I said, just tell me what you need right now. And she was like, I need to get ready.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. Take a breather. What do you need right now? And she was like, alone time. I was like, cool, I'll meet you downstairs.
Yeah.
Just to slow that down, to remind her those things instead of, well, you should have gotten up sooner and you're late and blah, blah, blah. No. Slow down.
Yeah.
Your day will go much better if you just take a breath, realize you're in control here. You're going to make it to school on time because I'll drive you around the corner to school so you don't have to walk. Relax.
Yeah.
And she came down so much happier. But my old way of parenting would have been to shame her for not getting up on time, to belittle her.
To rush her. Rush. Yeah.
It's crap.
Yeah.
It's awful. So I have been trying to talk her into making the shift, but she's so in it. She's so in it.
Yeah.
And she's building friendships that she's dreamt of having. And to leave that is like, what? So I explained to her, you can still do after school programs with everybody. I'm not taking your friends away from you.
Yeah.
You can have them come over after school and have a baking party once a week, and you can plan that and shop for it and prepare it.
Well, that's another thing that came up is like friendships at school. Well, first of all, Corinne's in elementary school, so she's not, where Jamie is. But I'm like, her friends are family friends. Like, she doesn't hang out with people outside of school.
Right.
Like the people at school, she doesn't hang out with them outside of school. So I'm like, I'm not really concerned about that.
And the ones that truly bring her joy, she'll reach out to.
I'm like,
and you get
we're not
together.
moving. We're still in the same area.
But think of how it is in their little brain.
Yeah.
In their little brain, I'm ruining her world right now. It is a huge change.
Yeah.
It is the end of an era. It is kind of like, oh gosh, what are they going to say about me?
Yeah.
And I told her, you can go back, but I want her to go back with worth, not with looking for likes.
Yeah.
Right.
I will facilitate it for her. I told her, give me 1 year. She negotiated me down to half a year, and I'll take it Because I believe in 4 months, her veil will come off. I believe in 4 months, she will feel why I'm doing this. And I told her, I have facilitated everything for each of my children. If anybody knows me, I'm the short order cook for my family. I meet everyone's needs, right? But I just feel that once that veil comes off, she can go back and be the leader.
Right.
Public school system can be okay if you put the tools in them to handle it.
Right.
And if you give them the tools of emotional regulation to not take that grade personally. You're just not good in that. Do enough to get by. If this is the route you want to take, do enough to get by.
Yeah.
If it's not the route and it's too much, get the heck out.
Yeah.
So I want to give her just a release. And when she walked into RDOs, I saw her light bulb come on that I haven't seen in years.
Really?
Immediately.
Yeah.
I was meant to be there. All 3 of my kids need to go. And I told them, I am no longer asking what you want. I'm telling you, I'm parenting, I'm guiding. You can hate me. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to prepare you to be a better human.
That's so funny you say that, Jenna, because Corinne wanted something different. So when we went, she's shy all of a sudden. So she's like, I want to stay with you. But then, no, she went to the play, to go play. But later, she's like, well, maybe I do want to stay in public school. But that's what I told her. I'm like, I will seek your opinion just because I want to know what you have to say. However, like, I'm the parent and I'm going to decide.
I've been making all the decisions all along of PCBC.
Because right now they're back and forth. Like, she's wishy-washy. So I need to narrow it down because you're a child and you're going to be all over the place. And I'm not going to ride that roller coaster with you.
And you said something to me that brought me peace and calmed me down. You said, 1 year at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm
that
all about
helped.
1 year at a time.
But
for all the kids.
But I wasn't, because I have to prove that I'm doing something.
No.
But that helped me. So
Yeah.
But then another friend of ours who is totally into RDOs, like, we are filling in the
I told you.
Here's the thing. I think we had already heard about it. We had already talked about it. We had already looked into it. So things were already happening and brewing.
Emotion.
Yeah. And this is a woman who's a retired colonel who I respect. Like, when she speaks, I feel like I must give it my all.
And the way she speaks is very soft-spoken.
She's just wise.
You want to, listen.
You know, you have those people in life that you have the joy of meeting, and it's an honor that you get to call them and say, what do I do?
Yeah.
So she is even interested in it because of our podcast. She's an old school way of thinking.
Right.
You know, a colonel from the Army. Hello. Like, she knows how to get things done and accomplished and with great grace. So when she told me, Jenna, oh my gosh, that podcast, I know people want this. I know people get this. It's just beating to a different drum is so hard at times.
Yep.
But once you beat that drum, you learn it and you thrive.
Yep.
And another thing I heard you say is, I have to. You get to because you homeschool.
Right.
It's a privilege. You don't have to.
You're right.
You get to, you choose to, and bravo to you for doing so.
Yeah.
And I think what's so great now, which is, I'm sure homeschool has changed immensely over the past 10, 20 years, but it's like when we first started at RDOs, I did everything they offered. I was like, yep, you got this. I'll help at home during the week, but I need
what I'm
you to
thinking,
do as much as you can, because I need to put one toe in the water of homeschooling. And things like that are available. And then curriculums, if you need a curriculum that is very self-guided for your kids. Like, again, my daughter's in Algebra 2. Mike is in pre-algebra. I can't help him with any of it, but we found a curriculum that is very self-teaching and that works for them. And maybe, you are the kind of parent that wants to plan lessons. And I think that's a big fear of parents, is that I now have to become a teacher and teach them, come up with curriculum, come up with the scheduling. And you can if you want, but you can also, you don't have to. And there is such a huge range of what you can do to make it fit what you need and what you're comfortable with.
Exactly.
Like, we needed RDOs to do everything that first year. And then I got to see, that's how you learn the best. I remember one of our first days with Amelia, one thing she struggled with, and she was labeled with a learning disability, which she doesn't have a learning
At her other
disability.
school.
Thousands of dollars in testing later, they're like, no, she doesn't have a learning. She struggles with, again, reading something in a book, spitting it out on paper, which not only do so many people struggle with that, but that's all of school. Reading something, putting it out. And so she had a pretty traditional textbook at Ardios for history. And she was supposed to read it. I thought, here we go again, But she was supposed to read it and then answer some questions. And it was a very complex, like it was not a dumbed down textbook at all. And she was really struggling. And I go in the other room, and all of a sudden I hear this lady robot voice talking history stuff. And I walked in. I'm like, what is going on? And she's like, well, I do so much better hearing it and reading it. Like I retain that so much better. So it was a digital textbook. She went and copied like 3 pages worth of text, pasted it into Google Translate, clicked English, and it read it to her while she could do that. I mean, it took her a quarter of the time that it would have.
And because that's how she learns.
And she figured that out. And this was like day 4 of doing this. And so, but again, I think there's the big jump into homeschooling. I kept saying to everybody, like, where's the class called, oh my gosh, I just pulled my kids out of private school. What do I do now? And everyone's like,
there's a podcast waiting to happen, right? That might be yours.
What do I do
The director of Ardios was like, no, we don't really have that. I thought, why don't you have that? The whole homeschool convention, had some that kind of touched on that.
Hilarious.
That is funny.
I felt like I was in my own little lonely world of, I don't know what to do. Like, I did this, and now what do I do? But you learn, as you learn anything else, as you learn to be an entrepreneur and make a lip gloss company or a podcast, you figure out how to do that, and it's just like, being a homeschool mom. You figure out, if you want to go to a convention, you go to a convention. If you want to Google curriculums, listen to podcasts. I've read so many things and tried to absorb.
Get involved in co-ops.
Yes, exactly. And all of those things, it just opens up this world to where it's not this scary jumping off the cliff. Like there are lots of levels of things to catch you.
And there's lots of support out there. There really is. And know that if you do pull your kids out of school to homeschool, you are not alone. There's a whole bunch of people out there that are doing it.
And I always say you can always go back if it doesn't work. Like give yourself grace to go through it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited, and shockingly and surprisingly, I'm not scared.
Yeah.
Because I do have that anxious personality, but I've been working on it.
And you know what I had these, like, my boss at Perimeter and all these, like, I would sit my teenage interns down and be like, okay, so how do you do it? Like, how do you do math? I mean, how does your mom do this? And what do you do? What do you do for this?
Yeah.
And, just having a couple of people who you can go, I don't know, tell me this. I feel like that's so important, and that took so much of the anxiety off of me that I could just ask somebody. Like, ask me. I've been at Ardios. I'm on staff there now. To ask away.
I'm going to be asking lots of questions.
And that's what I need.
You should see our text exchange. I'm just like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like,
and
what
I'm
do we
happy to do that because those people were happy to do that for me. And I could ask what I thought was the dumbest question and get the answer. So that's tremendous. It's not a lonely thing to homeschool. It's such a huge, amazing community.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a big community out there.
Well, I'm excited because I'm going to do more podcasts on this with you all. And then I'm actually recording one later today about education as a whole here in this country with 2 teachers. And, another story of I have a mom who's going to come on and she's going to share her story about her kid who has learning disability and like how the public school system is handled it, which was not the best way. But I just think we're so stuck in, like you were saying, Jenna, we're just so stuck in doing it this way all these years, and time has evolved and we have evolved as people in a society, and it's just not working anymore, man. It's not. And, I have Khalil in private and it's working for him for now. but it's not this typical private school. Like I was telling Adrienne off mic. It's not. It's just it's good for him right now. But hey, maybe if it works out for Corinne, he might want to do it. So we're taking it year by year, and I'm so excited because I want to see that growth, especially emotionally. I want them to be confident humans when they go onto that world, and they will be. I have all the confidence in the world for that. So, any parting words, ladies?
Thank you for keeping this conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that when people are, they kind of, like I was in that same boat. I would never homeschool. That's crazy. And then just little bits and little bits. And I kept hearing, and then it was that, there is a jumping off point where you do have to unenroll them in what they are.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place to be.
Absolutely.
It is.
And so podcasts like this, and just, I feared for the homeschool world when the pandemic hit, because I'm looking at all these people and what they're posting, and I was like, this is crisis schooling. This is not homeschooling at all. So,
So when you were like listening to people that don't homeschool, like they're griping about, oh my gosh,
right.
Yeah.
I would never like that. That's the opposite of homeschool.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crisis schooling.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Well, and I heard from so many of my peers that have kids in school, they're like, oh, you probably aren't doing, like nothing's changed for you. You're still homeschooling. Well, no, that's not true, because all of our extracurricular, all of our co-ops, all of our, social activities, all of our museum trips, our zoo trips, everything was canceled for us too. So we had to pivot too.
Yeah.
I mean, don't think that just because we homeschooled before the pandemic that it was easy for us, because it wasn't.
Very active in the community too.
Yeah.
Exactly. We are never at
That we're home braiding our hair and sewing our britches. We made a lot of money on britches this year.
Sewing those denim jumpers and braiding our hair.
I almost wore mine today.
That is hilarious. That's a good point though, Amanda. That's a really good point. And that just shows that people don't understand.
Right.
Yeah. And I was one of those people. So
And it's okay.
yeah.
Knowledge
And
is power.
I feel
Smiling.
so enlightened, and I'm so excited. Like so excited.
Me
for
too.
her. Yeah.
I'm excited for our kids, because we have to balance out what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we all go this direction, we're doomed.
Yes.
We are doomed.
Yeah. So we're making changes, everybody.
Yep.
Family by family.
Thank
Well,
you,
I
Jenna.
appreciate you, ladies. Thank you for being on. All right, bye.
Bye.
I will end with this quote. Be careful how you react. Spills can be wiped up. Dishes and furniture can be replaced. But it takes a long time to fix a child's broken heart. Thank you so much for listening to Virago 24/7. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and please give us 5-star ratings. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Virago24_7 and on Facebook at Virago24/7, and just connect with us and share your story. We'd love to hear from you.
Just give me my space to